Guys, is it time? Is it time to stop talking about Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou? Stop looking forward to it. Stop all the banter. Is it time? That's a hard one because we would like to see that match, wouldn't we? Francis Ngannou is hurt. Jon Jones is unlicensed. Not for nothing, it's not us, the community, that's stopping that fight. Francis gets a pass. He's going to have knee surgery. He gets a pass for a short period of time. I believe, and Dr. Abbasi will help us out with this, but I believe it was an MCL. That is very, very different than an ACL. ACL, 9 months. With all the luck in the world, 9 months. You really should take a year. Regardless of what the doctors tell you, you should take a year. But I believe this is an MCL. Either way, my point is the same. Whether that point gets to stay for a long period or a short period, my point's the same. We don't force anybody to do anything when they're hurt. We wish them well. We help somebody up when they're down. But we do have to deal with that with having the overlay to the story about the contract dispute. So that's Francis. But then if you look at Jon, he's not Mr. Innocent either. You have two guys that are extremely difficult to work with. I'm not passing any judgment here. You have two guys that are difficult. Jon is so difficult to work with that he didn't show up for work for 2 years. He's that difficult. Now, even if you think Jon is on the correct side of this, I'm not here to debate that. I'm making a very loose statement that they're difficult to work with. That would be a mega fight, big rewards for two difficult guys, and one of them is now going to be twice as difficult. He's going to need to want to that much less. So there's politics and there's things moving in all sorts of directions, but I can leave it at the most basic level. One is hurt, one is unlicensed. They need to make those moves, whether it's rehabbing or whether it's doing the paperwork. They need to make that first step. I also am a little surprised we haven't heard from Jon. Jon has made it clear, and I hear from people in the practice room with him, he's working his ass off. Jon has made it very clear he's coming back. With his words, he's told us that. Whatever was ailing him, whatever disputes he had, he's worked through. He's looking to come back. Jon even told us, guys, you remember 3 weeks ago, Jon Jones is telling us he's looking forward to watching this fight so we can study both of them because he's planning to take on the winner. But he's been very quiet since then. And it's the quietness that is largely the bigger point I'm getting at. Francis has been very quiet. If Francis believes that he can stay radio silent for 1 year and draw into a mega fight against anybody, I don't give a damn what the sport is, he's wrong. There is not a value in Francis Ngannou to go box. There is a massive value in the sitting UFC champion with the great Dana promoting it. That'll get you a big check. But if that is not the position, those offers aren't even coming in, and whoever is misleading him saying, yes, they will, yes, I can fix it, yes, the people want to see you, they're not telling him the truth. That's his decision, not ours, but these are the pieces that we're looking at if we're going to attempt to guess and decide, should we continue to look forward to Jones versus Ngannou? Now, set that aside. I think you can work things out with Francis. I think that we're starting to like Francis more. I think we appreciate and respect the fact that he came behind and used a skill set that he's never once displayed to hang on to that championship while hurt. I think we like Francis. I don't think Francis wants to leave. I mean, when you're part of a group, you're part of a community, they've got their arms around you and you're one of the leaders of it, that's a hard thing to say, I'm going to turn my back and I'm going to go over here and hope they like me just as much. I'm guessing right now, but I think we can get things worked out with Francis. You got to go back to Jon. Because whether I want to say he has a license or not, guys, that's some paperwork. I get it. Gets a bout agreement. He goes and does some medical. It's not that big of a deal. And I'm not trying to make believe that it is. And Jon does tell us that he wants to fight, but it's not just his words. It's his actions. He is in the room. He's putting in the time. He's putting in the work. He put on the size. He did everything that he set out to do. Now he needs a competition. I don't know that it can be with Francis, so who should it be with? And the one thing that Jon wants, and guys, I got to go back to the night that he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was in great spirits. He was back in front of the cameras, and he said, I've got this worked out with Dana, but I'm going to need to sell this fight a little bit more. I can be incentivized as long as a lot of people want to watch it. This was Jon, taking Jon's own words. So if Jon is not going to have Francis, I think Jon should get that party started in what direction he wants to go, because if Jon is sitting back thinking he's going to be called out, he's not. One problem that you have when you're dealing with Jon Jones, he doesn't quite understand how good he is. He really doesn't. Jon is the best, and guys don't want in there with him. It's a very scary proposition, not to mention, guys, the fear of the unknown. It's one of the art of war. All we know about Jon is he's very good. We don't even know how much better he is. His coaches are saying he's faster and more powerful than him. That's a scary thing. Nobody's calling out Jon. There are guys that will take that call, but you're going to have to put a little something on it. And I'm not just talking about a little cake, Jake. I'm talking about it has to be for a reason. If Jon's got the belt, boom, there's 2-3 boys that have the balls to go out there for that opportunity. If it gets named the number one contenders match, hey, there's 1 or 2 boys that are willing to walk out there just for that opportunity. But that's going to have to be stated ahead of time. And if Jon, and I'm only guessing because he's been so quiet, if Jon is waiting to be a counterpuncher, see who comes at him first, he's going to be sitting there alone. Nobody wants to fight Jon. There's some guys that are willing to fight him, and I only bring that to you because Jon has been very quiet. It would just seem to me, if he is going to act on the statement he made about bringing more attention into it, he might as well get started now. And there's only a couple of guys that could be. Ciryl is in play. Ciryl is very much in play, particularly if Ngannou does get stripped. And at a minimum, we're going to have an interim championship. At a minimum. The injury alone makes that eligible. History repeated itself, which was Francis sitting out after only 90 days, 3 months, guys. Tells us we're at a minimum going to have an interim championship. Ciryl's at play. Stipe is always game, but Stipe's never going to go first. He might not even counterpunch you. He just doesn't have an interest in that. And then you got Derek Lewis just because he's tougher than hell. I think there's opportunity right now because there's other guys that make a very interesting match with Jon Jones. Let me throw an example, guys. You want to see Jon, right? So we're going to come in and we're going to see Jon, particularly the very first time. There's very few things. You got main events, you got title fights, you have grudge fights. There's very few things that are bigger than a comeback fight. So who the opponent is, if there's ever been a time that doesn't need to be the emphasis quite as much, it's now for the comeback, Curtis Blaydes. Curtis would do it, for one. Check that box. Curtis is a big man, which Jon said he has problems with. You can check that box. Jon Jones was a junior college national champion. Curtis Blaydes was a junior college national champion, and the wrestling is a huge thing when you're dealing with Jon. In many ways, Curtis Blaydes is the biggest threat to Jones. Francis and Ciryl both have a lack in competitive wrestling. Stipe and Curtis Blaydes, check that box. That's an interesting fight. And Curtis is always looking for something big to do. I'm just saying, not for nothing. You got to start going in some directions, and Jon wants to get this ball rolling. I'm taking Jon at his word. I'm taking it on the words of his teammates, which is he's ready to go. He wants to go. That's different. Ready to go and he wants to go. That's now. Does Jon want that world title so bad? Does he want that one massive night as opposed to 2 or 3 damn good nights? I don't know. He'd have to tell us. But he could be waiting a meaningful amount of time. And as quiet as everybody's been, people aren't talking about Jon. People are not talking about Francis. If you hear a little chatter on either, it's bringing them together, but you got to search. They have not been a headline in 3 weeks. That's a long time. You cannot when you're in a business of promotion, you cannot let 21 days go by without being at the top of the page. You can't do it. So how does Jon get that back? I submit for you, he picked himself an opponent. And it's very slim pickings. You can't just put the top 10 heavyweights on the board, throw a dart, Jon gets to come in against one of them. It's not. You're not going to have a lot of guys saying yes. Curtis Blaydes will say yes. Stipe Miocic will say yes. In fact, was preparing for that fight almost 7 months ago, thought he was going to go in that direction. Derek Lewis is going to say yes. Ciryl, it's slim pickings. But I do think that those are the ones we're going to have to look at for Jon with the information that we've been given. Jon ready to come back. Jon wants to come back. Francis gets a pass. In all fairness, he's every right to heal that knee. Should Jon be looking in a different direction? And you agree with me. If you agree with me, then I know you're Curtis, Stipe, Derek, Ciryl. those are your options. Who do you want to see Jones fight next?